Hey, and welcome to the Book Bar, where everything bookish is on the menu. I'm Anjanette Barr, and I just watched the Where the Crawdads Sing trailer, so I wanted to talk about the book and make some predictions maybe for the movie. So I have my paperback copy here, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I'm going to put sections with timestamps in the description box because some of you may not have read this and I don't want to spoil anything for you. So the first part will just be my thoughts on the book, and then some spoilery things in the middle, and then my thoughts on the movie, the upcoming movie. And then hopefully I'll get to make another video after I see the movie and see if my movie predictions were right. So I came to this book a little bit late. I read it over this past winter. I started actually in October, put it down for a while, and finished it up at December and January. My youngest sister gave me the book for my birthday, and I had not read it before. Like I said, I'm a little late to the game because it was just so popular. Sometimes silly me just resists the popular things for no good reason. I didn't ever look into it and think I wouldn't like it. I just didn't look into it. But she thought I would love it, so she gave it to me, and I started reading it while she was visiting, and I did really enjoy the writing. I really enjoyed a lot of aspects of it, but I kind of put down other books so that I could read this one. So then I was torn. I needed it to really grab me and keep me, to not go back to those other books. And I hit a wall maybe a third of the way into it and needed to put it down. I won't tell you what scene it was or anything. And then when I picked it back up, I was completely taken with it and read it straight through to the end fairly quickly and ended up really enjoying it. So I've said in a previous video when I talked about it that I think this will probably be on my top 10 for 2022, although we're still early in the year, so who knows if something else might beat it out. I liked it way more than I thought I was going to like it. So if you're not familiar with the plot and premise of Where the Crawdads Sing, it's set in North Carolina in the Outer Banks, and it's about a girl named Kaya, and it is part coming of age story and part murder mystery. And you know right from the beginning that it's going to be both. I think the book is set up really nicely. I've heard critiques about the pacing of the book, but that was never my issues. As far as structure goes, I think it was fairly well done. It's about a girl named Kaya who is living in abject poverty with her family kind of out off-grid on purpose. Her father has taken them to live off-grid, and through lots of tragedies, she ends up on her own. So you kind of know that's coming from the very beginning, but and then she has to find her own way. So some of the strong points and some of the key themes in the book are nature. There's just a lot of really beautiful nature writing. You know, the observations she makes about the world that she lives in, which is mostly devoid of other people, and the way that the beauty around her piques her her interest and her intellect, despite like not having formal schooling and things like that. And the author does a really great job of recording really cool observations about birds in particular, and other wildlife. And I've never been to this part of the country, but I felt very much like I could see what I was supposed to be able to see from this book. So I think it was a triumph for that. Maybe if I had been, maybe if that wasn't such a transporting element of the story, then I might take issue a little bit more with other plot elements like I've seen some people do. But for me, that made the book. Just really feeling like I was living in these marshlands with these characters. And it does explore things like race, things like prejudice against people in poverty, She's called the Marsh Girl. She's seen as kind of an oddity, as an oddity, not kind of. You know, people speculate about her, and she's not welcome in the town. It's really, really sad in a lot of places. So what got me, I won't tell you any particular scenes, but what made me stop was that I just got too sad. Some of the triggers, there's several, for me was right from the very beginning. It was hard to read this as a mother, imagining my children going through the things that she goes through in this book. And then some of the relationships in the book all of the relationships in the book are really heartbreaking. Like, they all just really get you, the good and the bad. So yeah, lots of heartstrings being pulled the whole way through. And I put the book down because I was mad at the main character, basically. And then I think it ends on a good, conclusive note. So I thought it was worth, sometimes you read a book and it's like you're waiting and waiting, and then when it finally ends, it just ruins the whole thing for you because you can't swallow the ending. And I didn't feel this way. So if you have not read this and you're considering it because you've seen the trailer or because you've heard about it and you want to watch it before the movie, I think the book is absolutely worth reading, and I'll still feel that way regardless of what the movie is like. But before I talk about the movie, first of all, let me know if you agree with me in the comments if you have read it. Before I talk about the movie, I'm going to move into the spoilers section and talk about some specific things that got me about this book and that I didn't like and did like. So if you're still watching this and you haven't skipped ahead in the timestamp, then click in the description to go to the movie section so you don't get anything ruined for you. Okay, if you have read this book, I'll tell you the place that got me. I was so angry at Kaya for going after Chase. Going after, it's not really the right way to say it. It was, consensual for investing her time in him. I was just so angry at her. I just thought, you can't do this. Like, you can't, like, you have so much potential. I mean, what a success for the author to make me feel so frustrated that I had to put it down. But now it's been so long since I read it, I'm going to look through here. But then even after I picked this book back up, there were lots of things that made it an emotional read for me. So I think part of the success of this book is how it treats poverty. And I have some experience with poverty, but if you've been poor, there's a lot of different ways to be poor. And one of the things that I like to read, one of the things I like about reading stories about people in poverty, as hard as they can be, is every new story that you hear of someone struggling or overcoming struggles with poverty makes you realize that every one of us is an individual, that all of our struggles are different and the same. So like I said, never been to this part of the country. My poverty was not in isolation like hers. We did not live off grid. There's a lot of things I can't relate to, but what I can relate to was enough to really make me feel a lot of connection to the main character, but also some connection to some of the other characters. So, I grew up in there's like sudden poverty, right? You lose all your money and you're poor, but you didn't come from poverty. That's one kind of poverty. There's generational poverty. You guys have always been poor. And there's community poverty, where like everyone is poor, but like compared to another community, but you're not singled out. There's a lot of different kinds of poverty. And when I was growing up, I, for a lot of it, did not know that we were poor, and we weren't abjectly poor. We were the kind of poor where I didn't know that life insurance was a thing, or that, we had to make decisions like, do we keep the lights on or do we pay for car registration? Things like that. Also, the causes of poverty are many, and in our family, there was abuse and substance abuse that caused poverty. that wasn't necessarily generational, in that there were people that I knew in my family that were not poor in my community, but we didn't necessarily have a strong connection to them. However, most of the people that I grew up with were not wealthy. I mean, actually, no one that I grew up with was wealthy, but most of the people that I knew with, that I grew up with, were on like some level of poor. And so I didn't really feel poor compared to others until I got much older, middle school, high school especially, when I started meeting families that were vastly different than me. So I can relate to a lot of the doing without, and a lot of the feelings that she felt, and so that was affecting. But then for me personally, what ended up happening is as I learned how to kind of adapt and adjust to other ways of living and other families and how they did things, and became more aware of the different situations in life that there are out there, I often found myself really shocked and self-conscious and out of place in these weird ways. Just so many of the little things that happened in this book hit me in a, feeling like, oh, I know that feeling. Like, oh, you just don't quite fit in. I was a little rough around the edges compared to everyone else, and a little, it's not naivety, it's ignorance, like a little, I didn't know a lot of things that they knew. You could argue about whether or not they were important things, but still it made me not fit in. And then, since you've read the book, I hope, if you're watching this place, relationships wise, I think it's so good that the author made Tate go away, because that is life, you guys. I like the character of Tate. I'm glad that he wasn't necessarily the savior of Kaya, because I had so many times when I became close to a person, and then I ended up just being too much for them, and they went away. And then it's very, very natural that he didn't intend. I also like that then the fact that he didn't really intend to go away, but then when he did, it was like he couldn't imagine her fitting back in, or him fitting back in with her. It's like he still loved her, but he couldn't imagine how they could fit together. I had several relationships with guys like that, where it's like, I really love you, but you're just too much. We can't meet in the middle. So I think it was really realistic that she had this whole period without him, and then also realistic that they were able to come back together, but that it was never the same. So much of it, I just felt like she nailed it. She nailed so many of the feelings and the vulnerabilities of being a person without a strong family to support them. The trouble that she got in with Chase and things like that. Just so real. So I loved that. I really, really loved the nature writing. I know I've already said that. I could have had 300 times more of that and still loved it. But some of the critiques that I read were basically like, we don't care. Why is there so much? Why do we care? And I'm like, well, I care. It was so my book. So the ending. What did you guys think about the ending? Was it anticlimactic for you, or was it just what you hoped for? Did it change? I want to know if it changed your feelings about Kaya. It didn't for me. Knowing enough people who have suffered abuse, and sensing all along that Kaya was intelligent, it didn't change anything for me. It felt like a fitting ending, even if I would have hoped for something better for her. Like, I wish that somebody else did it, but it was a good ending. So overall, even though I've read a lot of critiques of this book, I don't know that I would have written it any differently. Okay, so now the movie. So I just watched the trailer this afternoon, and I've got to say, so I have been really excited that this was becoming a movie, because there's just nothing better than reading the book and then very quickly getting to see an adaptation of it. And not doing it the other way around. I don't have a problem watching a movie instead of a book. Sometimes I have a problem watching a book after I've watched the movie, because I'm a plot reader, so especially if it's a mystery, I don't care to keep reading if I already know it's going to happen. That happens to me with classics sometimes when you just know a lot of the plot line already. So I'm really happy that my sister gave this to me before the movie, and I was really excited to see that it was Reese Witherspoon who was making the movie, because I knew that this, in part, the book became popular because she chose it as a book club choice, and so she introduced it to people who wouldn't have otherwise read it, so I felt like she was a good person to handle it. I still have hope, but I was pretty disappointed in the trailer. I'm not a screenwriter. I can't be too critical, but I don't know if she's gonna adapt it the way that I would want to see it adapted. I'm basing this on, I guess, two things. One thing is none of the characters looked or sounded like I expected them to. And we all have like the people in our head when we read a book, and then we've had that experience where then when you see them on the screen, you may have to adjust, but then you adjust and it's okay. That's happened to me with lots of classics. That happened to me with Outlander, for instance. I was kind of like, I don't know, that's not what I expected them to look like, but if they're really good actors, then sometimes something morphs, and eventually you're like, oh, actually, you know what? I see why they cast you, and now I can buy in to you being that character. So maybe that will happen. Maybe after I actually watch the movie, I'll buy in. But none of the characters, not a single one that they showed in the trailer, were what I had envisioned for the characters. That's my issue number one. That makes me skeptical. Issue number two is there was no dirt. Everyone was clean in the whole trailer, and like she's seen as like just one step up from like being an animal. She's like, feral. And she doesn't, for quite a bit of the book, like she's not even truly aware of it until she kind of comes into, puberty and has that coming of age like we all have, where we kind of realize like we start to compare ourselves to things around us, right? The poverty is so abject that I just can't imagine that she would look the way she did in the trailer almost ever, except for I think some of it was like flash forward sort of in the timeline, and then but even the other characters, like when I was reading it, I got this feeling of like, these people are outdoors, and they're in the swamp, and she's digging up mussels. Oh, you know what? I take it back. I think there was a little bit of dirt in that one little part of the trailer where she said, I hear you all buy mussels. Is that what she said? So maybe I need to watch it again. But all of the older, all the shots of her when she's older, she was very clean, and she was wearing makeup. So I'm concerned that it's going to be a very pretty version of this story, and I think that'll do it a disservice, because it's not just a romance or just a murder mystery like I said. It's really a commentary on poverty and abuse and lots of things, and a very specific culture and a very specific place. So I don't know. I know it was filmed in New Orleans, I think. I don't know. I'm looking at the book because of course it wouldn't say, but I think I read that it was filmed not in the Outer Banks, but still in a similar ecosystem, microclimate. So we'll see what they do. I also really hope that they do a good job of incorporating that nature writing that the author did, and showing us more than just kind of a token bird or a feather. I saw a bird, a feather, and like one drawing, but I really hope that the feeling, the whole ambiance of it is captured in the movie. So we will see. I will be watching it as soon as I can, for sure. Tell me in the comments what you thought of the trailer, and if you agree with my assessment or if you have other concerns. we'll see. I was underwhelmed by the trailer. That's disappointing. So I hope that it's better than I expect. And I would love to hear what you think. So let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you guys later.